Okay, not the craziest day today, but let's get straight into it. S&P was up slightly. You can see quite a bit of resistance too, but it did close a little off its lows. I'm just going to call it a sideways down day. Nothing crazy. It wasn't actually red, but for me, it's sort of sideways. Sideways. Let's call it sideways. The Nasdaq again was the strongest one. Still a lot of resistance up here. I still think it's a double top. I still think we're going lower, and I don't really think that the Nasdaq deserves to be where it is. So but yeah, still the strongest one. The Dow Jones, a lot of resistance again, closed pretty much unchanged, flat, a bit like the S&P. You know, you could say it touched its prior support, so resistance again confirmed. Okay, didn't test too much the downside, but you can see these two channels here completely make sense. I still favor the downside move. Remember, the Dow is one of the weaker ones. The weakest one, the only one to actually close red, and to me, it's the one I'm watching the most. I mean, it's look at that. You know, we ventured to new lows. Number one, we closed, you could say, underneath support. Now, I did say 170 was very important. We didn't close below 170, but it's pretty much on the dot. Not the most reassuring close, that's for sure. Tomorrow, I'm looking for a close below 170, you know, 169, 16 something handle. But I think once you get that, it's, you know, we're going to go test the bottom. So the markets are a little lucky they closed off their lows. Otherwise, it would have been ugly, very ugly for the Russell, and actually for the Dow too. It would have been quite ugly to close down here. But you know, it's not over. You'd expect markets to be bouncing after a Fed that's done 25 and indicated maybe one last 25 coming. The market still thinks that there are going to be rate cuts, but you know they're going down. So, and the banking stocks, by the way, and you know I should cover the banking stocks right after covering these four market indices like I did yesterday. Look at that. Ventured to new lows, a bit like the Russell. Didn't close at new lows, but I mean, for me, very obvious we're going down here. And these are the seniors. Let's look at the KBE, which is the more junior, the more regional banks. Look at that new low and close at the prior low. So still very weak. You can't say the banking system is stable and resilient. I love these words they throw out there when you got this kind of a close after all those words, after the Credit Suisse's bailout, after all the bailouts, you're closing on new lows. Nah, nothing's fixed. And any day another bank can go down. And look at the banks. These are the sort of senior banks. I've always said, well, I don't know if I've always said it, but after Credit Suisse for me, Deutsche Bank, look at this. 21% is not a big move. What happens when you're down 21%? You're testing the all-time low right after that, which is $5. If Deutsche Bank goes, it's totally finished. You put a fork in it. And that's just Deutsche Bank. You've got HSBC, you've got Citi, you've got obviously First Republic, which is the main one in the crosshairs. Look at that, still going lower. Any day you could just make another new low, tomorrow, for example. So, you have one or two of these, one of these banks just starting to flush. The whole thing goes back down again to new lows. So to tie it back to the main markets here, especially the Russell just looks like the banking ETFs. Once we go down here, you can't have the Nasdaq going up. You just can't. It's not allowed. So yes, it wasn't a red day except for the Russell, but for me it was another weak day, another day where the markets should have rallied. They kind of had the excuse, but for me, bearish as I've been bearish for months. So yeah, that's what I think of the markets. And by the way, the VIX, slightly impressive intraday, it's sort of nearing 25, but again, lost a lot of its power. And it doesn't belong here. What happens if you have another bank collapse? This should be right in the high 20s. So I don't know who's selling the VIX over here in the low 20s. I don't know, unless it's a hedge trade, but it doesn't really make sense to me. So especially after this move here, that should have woken everyone up and told them, beware selling down here. Okay, let's look at rates. Rates, basically people bought bonds again, so rates dropped across the board. The 2-year, look at that, the 2-year under 4%. That's pretty impressive stuff. 5-year, you can see they're all following. And look at that, they're kind of ready to make new lows. I mean, I don't see it happening, not even tomorrow, but I don't know if there's another bank that goes under, new lows everywhere. So across the board on interest rates, although I don't know, maybe not the 30, testing the low range, but just watch out. Yeah, honestly, same thing I'm going to say for rates as I'm going to say for the markets. For me, there's another bank that's going to go under, and you can see Yellen trying to reassure and do a U-turn from what she said yesterday. We're ready to insure everyone. It's not even mathematically possible, not even slightly mathematically possible, but they're really, it's just a paper tiger. All they can say is jawbone their way to reassure people, but the market doesn't believe the Fed anymore, not on interest rates, not on banking stability. So I think it's just like the boy who cried wolf. They just don't believe it, and it's about bloody time. So anyway, rates down, so people buying bonds, not too much, but still, we are not out of the woods, and I think we've just left one set of woods to go into a deeper forest. So I think there's another banking crisis literally any day. Let's look at the dollar. The dollar was cutting in a bit of a bottom. So you can see this tail. We have come down quite a bit. And to be honest, yesterday's candle, trying to rally here into this support. And then today again, green, it fought back. For me, we're going to have a small bounce. I don't know how much that will help the markets or if it will even play a role. And again, if there's some news of some bank not maybe going down, but suffering withdrawals, how will the dollar act? Normally it should go up, but as we've seen, it's been going down. So going down because maybe they're going to be doing some QE, and you can see the Fed's balance sheet, by the way, it's gone up even more. So I'm just so sure about my gold trade. I mean, long term, I've always been sure, but now there's nothing more certain for me. It's just obviously short term. But yeah, short term, what do we get in the dollar? Maybe we get a little move up back to this sort of zone. Actually, I'll leave it where it is. Let's call it 103.5-ish. And then if it goes higher than this descending line, so I wouldn't be surprised if we have a small move up in the dollar. Just quickly look at the euro. You can see it broke out, but didn't reach the top of the zone. But still, euro broke out, dollar sliding against the yen, the pound. Yeah, didn't really break out with a vengeance, so which translates to the DXY just sort of going sideways and maybe reversing. Let's look at commodities. Copper surprised me, actually. I didn't expect it to close above this descending, so that's quite a strong move. Close a high of day. I really didn't expect that. I can't even really explain it. It's not like commodities was super hot today. It's not like the dollar was down, and it's not like the markets were up crazy. So the copper's just doing its own thing, actually. And yeah, let's see if it retraces much. If it doesn't, then probably go back and test this. Maybe copper just needs to do some catch up with gold, with silver. So maybe that's what it is. But it's still the hardest one for me to call, I think. But I'm not trading it, so I don't mind too much. Natural gas remains low. I would have expected a bit of a bounce by now. So I am of the opinion we could actually test the lows again. Let's call it 2.1, right? 2.10. And if it goes lower, honestly, great. Didn't expect it. I've already bought twice. So I'm good for the twos, that's for sure, the low twos. So yeah, let's see. I mean, if it flushes, then let's see if it does that with the market going down. But I don't even care what the market does. If natural gas starts to flush and go lower, I'm just going to be buying according to natural gas technicals. I don't even care if the market acts as a catalyst on the way down. I'm just going to take advantage and time everything according to natural gas's chart. But I will do that when we get there. Let's take out $2 first, if we even do that. But it does look weak, so next stop maybe 1.7. We'll do that when we get there. Oil. So oil rallied off this strong support zone, mid 60s, let's call it 65-ish, and ventured into the very low 70s between these two tram lines. Got a lot of resistance. Today's candle even weaker than yesterday's. I think we go back down again, mid 60s, maybe test the support zone, and then it'll be very interesting. And I wonder when the strategic petroleum reserve gets filled up. It's probably a good time to do that now, if it's possible. It's probably some legal thing, but I don't know. If the government can do it, probably a good time to, add now. And if it goes lower, then add more later. But I think we'll go back down again. And I think uranium is 1 or 2 days ahead. Look, it's the same sort of thing. Bounce, and then uranium's coming back down again. Uranium, though, just like oil, once again, very similar. could flush its longer term ascending support. And maybe tomorrow we test, what are we going to call it, 18.3, you know? So if we close, well, a close below 18 would really do it for me. Maybe that would take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 days, but I mean, it's not the strongest chart. So I'm licking my lips, because if uranium does start to flush, I'll tell you what, the one stock I wanted to buy for months, maybe even over a year, where is it, CCJ? Yeah, I made some double tram line ascending support. You guys probably know CCJ, probably the best stock when it comes to uranium. Yeah, it's got a lot of support. It's stronger than the uranium chart, that's for sure. So maybe it's time to nibble on the way down. I'll do a video when it gets there, but you know, I'd love a low 20s. Oh, the low 20s would be great. But or maybe the juniors get very risky. They're very weak. Look at that. They've already started to flush 1 day in advance. Look at this. You can see how these technicals work. Look at this. Beautiful. Unless there's some news, I think this is just technicals, which proves that these ascending lines really do work. I haven't looked at uranium, actually, just looking at it now. Look at this one here. Look at that very weak bounce. And already these juniors, you can tell it's a bit like the gold mining sector, just underperforming the ETFs, the senior ETFs. So bam, bam, you can get these really cheap. All these people buying this part over here, I really feel for them, but at the same time, I kind of thought this might happen. So UEC. Anyway, I'll get to uranium. Well, I might start looking at uranium a lot more if it starts to flush. I'll tell you that. Let's look at gold, gold and silver, and all the other commodities that I typically cover. So gold, it was another up day, a decent day. We tested and took out 2000, just closed. Well, actually, it's the best close in a long time since the first time we took out. Well, no. Anyway, still a very good close. Very good close, actually, in my opinion. Because at one point today, I thought we could start to lose momentum, but I think it was a good close. You know, you've got to close above 2000. You've got to have several days above 2000 to make this time different. A lot of people think this is just a short pit stop at 2000 before we go back down again, as we've done the last 2 times. So, you know, you want to see it just sort of hold above 2000 to make it look different than these times. You know, these times it spent what, maybe a week above or around 2000. This time even less. It was just 2 days, I think. That was the Russian invasion, I'm pretty sure. So you want to have sort of 2-3 weeks where it's holding, closing above 2000, and then, you know, a run to 2100, and then it's just all Christmas every day. But so far, pretty good. So far, pretty good. Despite the dollar looking like it's going to go up. It'd be interesting to see how the dollar reacts. I mean, how gold reacts to the dollar tomorrow if the dollar goes up. But again, for me, the biggest mover is the markets. You know, I'm watching gold versus the markets and obviously the miners, and I still see gold acting by and large opposite to the markets. There are some moments where they go up and down together, but by and large, they're still sort of opposites. So I like that. So yeah, let's see. Silver still inching up a little bit. I just really want this to start hitting its head against this zone, because I want to be sure that once gold starts to test 2000 and maybe make a run to 2100, that silver will be taken out of this zone once and for all, because we need to still play some catch up. So silver, well, who cares what I want? It's what's going to happen. But I do think gold will go up again. I think the markets will go down. I think silver will start to outperform, continue to outperform gold, because it's kind of recently done that. So there's still some room. You can see where the resistance is. The miners, have you noticed how I'm not talking about the levels on the way down? I'm quite sure it's not going to do it. Although every day I start doubting it also at some periods, but I still think we're going to go higher. The miners, yeah, a bit like silver, still got some room to run before we start testing the prior highs. I think this is what, about 8% of a move, something like that. I know less. Oh, that's the GDX. Sorry, yeah, 5-6% on the GDX and the GDXJ. I think it's 8%. Now, test the highs, which is nice. You know, that's a good amount of sort of percentage moves to make extra money on. The GDX, both of them actually are in a bit of a resistance zone. So this horizontal line Yeah, we've cleared it and we did close better now than we have since this whole move up. It's still in the gap zone. We did sort of, well, we did close the gap, but it's still a bit of resistance. And actually, I haven't seen this line here. I don't think it really counts with it, probably. No, it doesn't. But the GDXJ, it's the horizontal line, it's the gap, but it's also this ascending. Just feel like there's quite a lot of zones triangulating over here. So I just really want to see a visible close above all of this, just to, for me, to be reassured that we've cleared this resistance. But GDXJ, a bit of resistance, more so than the GDX, I would say. But again, this move, we're going to make it if gold clears 2000 and by a bit and closes above 2000 and silver runs to that 24 zone. Then you can start making this entire gap here sort of closed, a 6% move in GDX and 8% move in GDXJ. And then it's fireworks. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but yeah, it all kind of depends on how gold reacts to the markets. And let's see if dollar has an effect too. Bitcoin finally, still hanging in there. Look at that big drop yesterday, made it all back and almost ventured to new highs today. So not gonna lie, Bitcoin's still holding out quite well. You can see it's just holding above this ascending. So be interesting to see if it starts to continue to grind higher. What happens if we start to hit our head on 30,000? Does it just scream higher? And then really the bottom is in, I would say, even if we have a massive market crash. If Bitcoin is going up with a market crash, then what would it take for Bitcoin to make new lows? You can ask yourself that. Maybe the bottom is in. Of course, Bitcoin can all of a sudden start to crash, because when you have a real market crash, everything gets sold. It's just pure panic liquidation. People need to raise liquidity and sell anything. And obviously, the Bitcoin follows the Nasdaq, and so far the Nasdaq's been doing quite well. So still need to see how Bitcoin reacts if the Nasdaq goes down. And I really think we are never more than one day away from that day, because if there's another bank that goes down, it all comes down again. So that'll be interesting. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Very nice and brief. Tomorrow's Friday, so I'll look forward to doing a more thorough weekly recap. So good luck trading tomorrow otherwise.